a lot of the artists I was hearing in bands seemed to me like they were thinking very small. And then I heard X Ambassadors and I just thought, God, this could be bigger than Coldplay or U2 or something. So
Wow.
she introduced me to them. I loved the EP, met with them. They told me that a bunch of managers were chasing them and stuff. So I went to see them play. Was blown away by their performance, and there was probably 5 people in the room.
How are managers chasing a band when they're only bringing 5 people to a show in New York? I don't understand that.
Well, then we started working together, and I think about a year later, one of them said to me, Seth, there were no other managers. There was maybe one we were kind of talking to, but they were like, we just really needed a manager. So we just decided to play you.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business and creator of Ari's Take Academy. This episode, this is the first time that we've done this. This is a live episode virtually, live on Zoom, and we invited Ari's Take Academy students to be a part of this, and they were able to ask questions at the end of this episode. This episode is with Seth Kallen. He's an artist manager. He represents JP Saxe, one of my favorites, X Ambassadors, Jukebox The Ghost, and many others. And this is, we got into a really interesting conversation. He talks about how to get opening slots on tours, kind of how he was relentless early on and how he kind of got his footing as a manager, and then gave a lot of really practical tips for artists and managers today on how to succeed with a music career. And we discussed sync licensing, we discussed touring, we discussed creating during quarantine and what that looks like and how people are making it work these days. So this was a great discussion, and stick around to the very end for the questions from some of these students. They asked really excellent questions. We even had somebody from Moscow ask a question, and he gave very knowledgeable answers to them. And it's a really insightful conversation. He was so generous with knowledge and wisdom, and I had a great time with this. So as always, please subscribe or like or follow this podcast, however you're listening to this right now. If you haven't already, please leave a review. Those really help in Apple Podcasts if you're using Apple Podcasts. And follow me on Instagram. It's at Ari's Take, or my personal one at Ari Herstand, where I'm posting a lot of new music. On Twitter, it's at Ari's Take. And of course, the website is aristake.com, a fully new revamped website. Check it out if you haven't yet. And you can sign up for the email list there, and we send out an email every time we post a new episode. All right, well, let's kick into the interview. Seth, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Hello. Where are you coming to us from? Where are you quarantining right now?
I am quarantining in Los Angeles in Atwater Village.
So, I'm curious, before we kind of like get into management and what management is and your artists and all that cool stuff and your story and all that amazing stuff, I just want to kind of hear how it's been for you the last few months, having to stay quarantined, and how you're able to kind of continue your career as a manager in quarantine. Are you talking to your artists much? How's it going for them? Just like, how has life shifted in the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, it's shifted in a pretty extreme way. I mean, on the personal side, to be honest, I've been really enjoying being home, and I'm a pretty I think, like you said in your in the bio, I keep pretty close relationships with my artists. I'm pretty constantly on the road, and whether that's traveling to New York for meetings or going to festivals abroad or whatnot. I mean, I'm honestly on a flight typically on average every 2 weeks. So this has been really nice, just being in one place. And just focused on my work and just honestly at home. And I've been enjoying it, but It's weird. It's funny. Yesterday, actually, I kind of, I've obviously left the house a few times to whether it's to do some errands and that kind of thing, but I went out to a music video shoot for an artist, and it was like a socially distanced music video shoot. Everybody was 10 feet apart. It was all shot outside,
Oh,
but
wow.
it was a little bit of a weird feeling getting back into the groove of kind of doing music business related tasks around other
Yeah.
people. I wasn't used to it, but
Yeah.
it's kind of was a shock to my system because
Mhm.
normally, the last 10 years of my life has just been every couple weeks on a flight, on a tour bus,
Mhm.
both for fun or for business or whatever. So it's been an interesting experience not being able to be in person with the artist specifically.
So you spend
And
quite a bit of time typically in person with the artist, because I know tour managers obviously are on the road with the artist for the whole duration of the tour. Artist managers typically aren't, but I know it's a wide range. I know artists who do pop in the bus for most of the tour, and when artist managers start with the band, they're like the fifth member of the band, and they book the tour and join the tour. How has it been for you now that you've kind of established yourself as a manager? How does that go for you?
I mean, I always say that uh, I'll go to the important things or the fun things. Often they're the same, So it's like I'm on the bus with ex ambassadors a lot, and that's partly because if they're playing a new market or a new country for the first time, I like to be there. I like to meet the local reps from, say, Universal in Germany or Switzerland or Russia or whatever.
Cool.
But also, it's fun. I mean, I love music and I love being an artist manager, but
Yeah.
also my passion is travel and seeing the world and seeing
Uh,
music through the eyes of other people. So last year when X Ambassadors had a big European tour that ended with some shows in Russia and the Ukraine. I always go to their shows in London, for example, because it's a big market and it's the center of the
sure.
British and European music industry. Probably you could say so. So that was at the beginning of the tour,
Hmm.
but at the end of the tour, they're playing in Moscow. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to miss that. That's cool. They're
Right.
going to play to 3,000 people in Russia. I
Yeah.
just, I want to see that. So I just went.
Had you been to Russia before?
I'd never been to Russia. So it's just, worked out great. And
Wow.
I like to do that a lot. And
Hmm.
my wife is a photographer. So she's always willing to sort of travel with me or shoot some of the
Nice.
artists, or we work together pretty often. So
That's great.
that makes it easy,
Any kids?
No, no.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I
That's
manage I manage a bunch of artists, so that's like I have
hey.
about 40 children. So
Right, right. That's cool. Well, that's nice to hear
yeah.
that travel is your passion. And so it's kind of, you don't
Yeah.
feel like it's required of you necessarily to go to all these shows, but you enjoy it. And I mean, it's nice to hear that you've found a balance and a way where you can still do the things that you're passionate about and that you enjoy. I think a lot of people in the music industry, no matter what job you are, kind of fall into a routine of how they have to do it or how it has to be. And then they start hating doing that and they've lost
Yeah.
track of why they're in it and what they love. But it seems that you still are enjoying it after all these years.
Yeah, I love it. And that's the part I love. And frankly, I also, I just wrote this piece on this that I posted on Medium,
Mm.
that, anyone's welcome to check out. But I was
We'll link to
doing
that in
a
the show notes. Cool.
great, great. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I was doing some deeper thinking about what I actually miss from sort of pre quarantine work life. And there's a lot I really couldn't care less about, and there's a lot I don't miss at all. And there's a lot of, meetings that very well could be phone calls, that very well could be Zooms now. So a lot of that I've really gone, you know what, I don't miss that. I don't miss a lot of these lame networking
Mm.
things or
Hmm.
events or shows. But what I really miss is seeing the artists that I work with perform live.
Mm.
And so therefore that's kind of, that goes hand in hand with traveling pretty often because, like I said about the ex-ambassadors when they went to Russia, I get such a joy out of watching them perform on stage, and
Mm-hmm.
that's my real love, is being in the live, feeling something live. So, it's often what happens in my brain is like, well, I want to see people in Mexico sing along to a Salvador song, or I want to see
Yeah.
people in Brazil sing along to JP Saxe. So I'm
Yeah.
the first one to get on the plane to go just be a part of that, because it's just what brings me the most joy.
I completely relate. I think we're all feeling that right now. I mean, in a normal week, I'm out seeing live music 4 nights a week around Los Angeles. Like, I
Yeah.
love going to see music here, supporting the community, my friends here. If I'm not performing, I'm out seeing a show. And that's kind of how it's always been because I love it. And I think so much of us, like, we're feeling very deprived right now. And
Yeah.
artists that I've been talking to who live on stage, it's especially difficult for them because it's kind of a loss of identity almost. It's like they feel such a connection in life and with with the audience. It's like the audience is a love. It's like if you were ripped away from your lover, who you got to know and absolutely love and have been with for years, and you're ripped away and you're not able to see them, call them, interact with them, FaceTime, nothing. That's hard. And live streaming shows, they're not cutting it.
Yeah.
Like, that shit is just like, I I co-founded Uncanceled Music Festival, the whole live streaming festival, and like we got a bunch of artists, and I know Jukebox The Ghost played that and everything, and like, it was like, oh, we did it right when quarantine started. It was like, this is the solution. And then as we were talking to it, and I played a couple live streaming shows, I'm like, man, this is not a replacement for live music. You cannot replace that physical electric energy of being in the club.
It's been a strange thing, I think, for the industry side and for the artists to experience this live streaming thing. There's I think some interesting new ideas that are going to come of it. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of artists are having a good time with certain live streams they're doing, and
Yeah.
JP, for example, I was talking to him yesterday, and he was like, I really love doing my weekly Instagram live, and I have fans chatting all around the world, and I can just like be myself and be silly, and it's really easygoing. And, and so I think there's artists that are enjoying parts of it,
That's
but,
great.
definitely that, I don't know. I mean, just the feeling of being on the side of the stage, watching, an artist sing in front of, I don't know, 50,000 people when
Yeah.
for me, I remember, I have these experiences of finding this artist or starting to work with this artist when they were playing in front of maybe 15 people. And then and then when I can see it turn into main stage at Lollapalooza or sold out Brooklyn Steel,
It's so
or,
cool.
that's when I go, that's sort of for me, my barometer of like, okay, we've done something great here.
Yeah. That's awesome. So before I want to get into that, like the story of seeing an artist where it played 15 people and then Lollapalooza. But before we get in, just for people who, for listeners who may not have a strong handle on what an artist manager is or does, let's just break it down to the very basics of it all. Can you explain what an artist manager is and what you do?
I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest, but
I love it. There's this
yeah.
when Rick Rubin was on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and Tim Ferriss was like, "So what does a producer do?" And Rick Rubin, as one of the most famous producers on planet Earth, was like, "I have no idea. I can tell you what I do, but I don't know what a
Right.
producer does."
Yeah, I mean, well, okay,
So what do
for
you
those.
do? Yeah.
So I always, there's one thing I do say to everybody who is, I'm trying to explain what an artist manager is. I say we're typically not an expert on anything, but we know a little bit about everything. And
that.
I'm the mouthpiece for the artist to the rest of the music industry. So what I love about it is, it's sort of you and the artist against the world, or so you're the I don't know, to use a football analogy, you're the quarterback of the team, or you're the general of the army, or whatever it is. I mean, my job is to get to know any artist I'm choosing to work with, or that's choosing to work with me, really understand their ambitions, their hopes, their dreams, understand their music, understand where they sort of fit in culturally, where they, and that sort of thing. And it's to help them find their audience, and then it's to help build a team around them that are experts in a number of things, whether it's touring or merch or, releasing music and marketing, and work with all those people. And, a lot of the artists I work with, of course, also work closely with the team around them, including myself. But it's really sort of the artist manager's job to just really understand what the artist is trying to do. And, someone told me once very early on, they said, never forget that you work for the artist doesn't work for you. So, and I'm sure not all managers feel that way. Some managers find it, but a new talent, a new band, a new singer, and sort of say, I think you're great, this is how it's going to be done, right? Whereas that's not my style at all. I find both a music I love and a human being I love, and then I say I'm here to serve you and to sort of figure out where you want to go, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help you get there. And I always work for you. There might be times where we butt heads and we disagree on how to get you there, right? Sure. So there are definitely times when, I say, hey, I think we're making the wrong decision, or I think we should release this song, not this song, or I think we should, whatever, choose this music video director over this one. But at the end of the day, I always take a step back and go, this is your career, this is your art, this is your music, I'll help you get where you want to go.
So you're a part of a lot of that process, and it seems like you're even there for part of the creative decisions, music video director, or and kind of the release schedule and strategy, and I guess what parts are you in the room when they're writing the songs? Like, what parts are you there for, and what parts are you not there for necessarily?
Yesterday, actually, I was talking to another manager friend of mine who manages a number of successful songwriters and producers. And we were just chatting. We're always catching up. And I forget, I was telling him about some conversation I had with an artist. And he goes, don't you ever feel like you have to be a chameleon when you manage multiple artists? And he goes, you hang up with one guy and then you pick up a call from the next and you suddenly feel like you're a different person. And and that really stuck with me, because every artist I work with in a different capacity, whether it's, I don't know, for ex ambassadors, I obviously work with them closely on the music, but often, they're pretty self-contained when it comes to what they want to do and their vision for the music. And sometimes,
what do you mean you work with them closely on the music?
I'm always, they're always sending me ideas and demos and things like that. But the truth is that, occasionally there's even times where Sam will send me this really crazy song and I'll go, dude, I don't know what's going on here. This is really confusing to me. And then he'll be like, okay, that means it's really cool. He's like, if you don't get it because you listen to Bob Dylan and Jackson Browne all day, then that means it's awesome.
And for people who don't know, I just want to prep everybody. You're a singer-songwriter. You're an artist. You started as a singer-songwriter. And correct, so you have those songwriting chops and artist chops. And so, you feel it, and you can actually, go head to head with them.
Yeah. And so again, with each artist, it's so different, right? With the ex ambassadors guys, I work with them on the music production process only to a certain extent, because they really build everything in their own world. Sam has one of the most amazing just visions for what he wants to do, and he knows exactly how he's going to get there, and knows exactly the music he wants to be doing. And I give ideas. I say like, hey, why don't you try this, or do you want to work with this person? But on the flip side, I'll have times where, I don't know, Jukebox The Ghost will send me a demo, and I'll just listen to it, and I'll say, hey, okay, here's my thoughts. This lyric seems a little throwaway. Why don't you change this? Or,
cool.
Ben, you're singing lower in your register. Do you guys want to maybe just attempt changing the key, just and yell the chorus instead of whisper the chorus? And so each artist is completely different with how I work with them on the music. And that same thing goes for, all of the creative, whether it's music videos or, I don't know what the tour production looks like. So it's different with everybody.
That's cool. So I want you to talk about kind of how you got started with Jukebox The Ghost. I know they were your first band that you managed, and you were still an artist at the time. Is that right? When you first kind of met them, didn't you play a show together? How did you get to know them? How did you get started as a manager?
So when I was in high school, I was a singer songwriter, fronted my own band in Philadelphia. My dad actually yesterday sent me a scan of an article in 2004 in the Philadelphia City paper that was promoting some show I had coming up. He was
yes.
like, check out what I found. That was pretty amazing. Yes. But yeah, I mean, I met Jukebox The Ghost playing a gig with them at their college. So I was in high school actually, and they were freshmen at George Washington University. So I drove down to play a gig with them.
Cool.
I remember standing there in this cafeteria in front of nobody, but watching them play. And I just thought, oh my God, this band is the best thing I've ever seen. I don't understand. I almost had this like out of body experience being like, I know I'm only 17 years old or 18 years old, but like, this is unbelievable. No one should be making music like this that's 18 or 19. This is amazing. So fast forward to it was either freshman or sophomore year of college at NYU, 2005 or so, 2005, 2006. I had a school project to do, which was produce a song for any artist. I invited them up to New York to use our studio space at NYU for free.
What were you studying there?
I was in the Clive Davis program at Tisch. So it was a music production, music business program. It was in the early days of that school. And yeah, my roommate and I at the time produced a song for them, but I kind of realized while they were coming up on these, visits every couple of weeks to work on this music with us, I realized while I was doing it, just that I had very little interest in editing the Pro Tools session or figuring out where the mics should be placed. It just was not my thing. And my roommate was doing all that with them. And I was sitting there going like, okay, when you finish this first song, like, what's your first show in New York going to be like? And so I pitched them on it, and I said, guys, I'd love to be your manager. I know I'm younger than you. I know I'm just a kid, but I really believe in what you do. I've managed my own band to be, relatively successful in the Philadelphia, Northeast corridor kind of region. And, my big pitch to them was I made my own band popular in Philadelphia. Maybe I can use the same approach and help you become popular in Washington, D.C. They said, I don't even know what a manager does, but sure, you can be that for us. And that was about 15 years ago, which is really insane. And yeah, so that kind of got me started. And
early on in those days when you were, did you like you were in college? So did you finish college? Did you drop out and do that full time, or how are you doing that early on?
I mean, I was lucky enough to go to a college that supported being a manager, right? That was, they wanted to see, I remember actually early on at NYU, our professors really trying to beat home to us that we should be entrepreneurial with our careers. So they said, this was because I went to school when, Napster was destroying the music industry and everyone was getting fired. And I was just, oblivious and naive to everything because,
Mm-hmm.
you had the older generation going, like, back in the day, we used to sell CDs, and I was thinking to myself, we don't sell Jukebox The Ghost CDs. We just hand them out on college campuses. Who cares? Like, people will buy a T-shirt later. So,
Yeah.
the school I went to, I remember they were my professors, Nick and Lauren Davis and Jim Anderson. They would say to me, don't worry about getting a job. Create your job for yourself for when you graduate. So I really took that to heart, and
Cool.
I managed them all throughout school. Pretty much every school project had something to do with Jukebox The Ghost. There were times when I would tell my professors, like, I'd say, guys, I'm really sorry. I know there's an exam next week, but I don't know. Jukebox The Ghost is playing in LA for the first time. I have to go to that. And they'd say, okay, you can go. You still have to do the exam, but you need to write an extra essay on what your experience was like going to LA or something. And I said, no problem. That sounds so much fun. So, so that led me to a day-to-day position after I graduated at MCT Management, where I did day-to-day for Rufus Wainwright, Fran Healy from the band Travis, who is an idol of mine. So that was cool. And a few other artists. And, the short version is then I found X Ambassadors while I was at that company.
Before you bring in X Ambassadors, can you explain what a day-to-day manager is? What does that mean?
So a day-to-day manager is just the support role to the manager, right? I mean, early on in an artist's career, the manager just does everything one-on-one with the artist. So obviously for many years with me and Jukebox The Ghost, and even with me and X Ambassadors and Savoir D'Or and all of these artists I managed, it was me doing everything. So whether it was negotiating their new record contract with their lawyer or doing that kind of big picture stuff, or also, I mean, when I was in college, I was sitting on my computer at 1 a.m. answering MySpace messages for Jukebox The Ghost, So it was doing everything. But then as I've grown my company and sort of grown my in my position in the music industry, and I have more artists and some more responsibilities, I have a support staff that work underneath me that help with logistics, that help with all sorts of things. And they help me with creative decisions. They help me with all that stuff. So it's somewhere between an assistant type role and also just helping as the sort of functional operations person with anything involved with an artist's career. So when I was doing that for Rufus Wainwright, it was a mix of sending Rufus a daily or a weekly email with his schedule for the next 2 weeks. And it was making sure his website was up to date or anything like that. And I'm not doing that stuff for my artists now. I have multiple day-to-day managers that work for me, and then I can use my time and my energy to focus on bigger picture things, whether it's, on anything, anything that you'd classify it bigger, I guess.
Right. So, okay. So you said you found X Ambassadors. What does that mean? How did you find them?
So I got an email from a woman named Samantha Cox at BMI. If any of you that are listening or watching this right now, songwriters, I'm sure Ari has taught you register with a PRO to help you collect your royalties. And Samantha is an amazing human being who has a love for helping artists early on in their career. So Samantha sent me an email and said, this band, they were called The Ambassadors at the time. They need a manager. I thought of you because I knew her through Jukebox The Ghost. And she said, check this out. And I remember listening to their first EP. It was called Litost. It was the Litost EP, Litost. And I just remember hearing this EP and thinking, God, this band sounds like they're going to play in arenas one day. Like, this isn't... I was living Brooklyn in 2009 or 10 or whenever I first heard them. And a lot of the artists I was hearing in bands seemed to me like they were thinking very small. And then I heard X Ambassadors and I just thought, God, this could be bigger than Coldplay or U2 or something.
Wow.
So she introduced me to them. I loved the EP, met with them. They told me that a bunch of managers were chasing them and stuff. So I went to see them play. was blown away by their performance, and there was probably 5 people in the room.
Where was this? 5 people.
This was at a venue called Tammany Hall in New York.
Okay. How are managers chasing a band when they're only bringing 5 people to a show in New York? I don't understand that.
Well, here's the thing. So I went up to them, and Sam had just finished singing, and the band was breaking down their gear, and I said, "Guys, I'm so in. That was so amazing. Like, can I be your manager?" And Sam said, "Absolutely. First order of business. There's a girl named Michelle in the back who has $100 check. Can you go grab it for us?" And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I ran and got the check for them. And then, then we started working together. And I think about a year later, one of them said to me, "Seth, there were no other managers. There was maybe one we were kind of talking to, but they were like, we just really needed a manager. So we just decided to play you."
Gotta play that game a little bit. Look at those little white lies. Okay.
And I'm glad they did. But,
man, playing a little hard to get. I like that. Well, everybody take notes. Sometimes you need to play a little hard to get. Okay.
They even did something where, this is funny. They used to have a fake email address for a fake manager that they invented to email venues in New York. So actually, when I started working with them, and I booked them before they had a booking agent, I helped them book a gig at the Mercury Lounge in New York. And the guy who was booking shows at the Mercury Lounge came up to me and he said, "Oh, that's so cool. You're working with the Ambassadors. Whatever happened to whatever this fake name was?" And I didn't have the heart to tell him that guy was fake. So I was like, they got rid of him,
Dude, oh no. I did that shit early on in my career. I created a fake booking agent created a fake manager and was booking some shows that way with William Miller. I got the name from Almost Famous, So it was William at ariherstand.com, which is the email, which I believe still exists. And I was booking a lot of shows and started making connections and relationships as William. And I got into real hot water once where I booked this, I booked a show at a high school for some like big spring event that they were throwing for the entire high school play. And they wanted Ari to come play. And so William, and then it was right in town. And so "Oh, William, will you be there?" And cause William was negotiating with these high school girls, and they became friends and talking on the phone, and they became really good friends with William. And so as William, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there." And so then I'm like, how am I going to do this? So I asked my friend, who's not in music at all. He was pre-med and at college, because we were in college at the time. And I'm like, "Yo, can you be my manager for the day?" And he's like, "What does that mean? What's a manager?" I'm like, just get in the car. So I get in the car. We had an hour drive to the high school. I printed out all of the emails. I'm like, "Here, study up. This is who you are, and this is the relationships that you had with everybody." And then we interacted, and then these girls started showing up to my shows that my friend Sean was also showing up to, and they knew him as William. It was this weird mess. And I'd have to run up to Sean before. I'm like, "Dude, you're William tonight." "What?" I'm like,
"You spun a deep web of lies, I see."
Oh my gosh.
You got it.
I'm like, you know what? I at some point, I don't know if that's a good idea to continue to use that alias. Where do you fall on the alias? What do you think?
I think do it early on. It helped ex-ambassadors. It can help you.
Great. I've been on the fence about that ever since, because man, when I eventually told those girls, because they became super fans and they started showing up to every show, and Sean was there, and I just had to break it to them. I broke their hearts. They felt deceived, but they also just felt stupid. And I'm like, "Oh no, it's not your fault. It's my fault. I'm the asshole here."
Well, ex-ambassadors fired the fake manager before it got too late.
Just fire them. Just don't ever let them meet anybody, and just get rid of them. Okay, cool. That's great. So when you met ex-ambassadors, they were playing to 5 people. How did you kind of take them from 5 people in New York, making $100 at that show, which is a lot for bringing only 5 people, to over what? Billions of streams, hits on the radio, touring, playing every venue imaginable, and for a point being one of the biggest bands in the world?
I mean, for them, at first, I took the path that we took with Jukebox The Ghost, which was at this time, I mean, the music industry has changed so much where at that time, the idea of making any money off of your masters or your publishing was so far-fetched to me that all we thought about was touring. So at that time, Jukebox The Ghost had kind of planted their flag as a band, as a live band that did really well, especially in the Northeast, in the Midwest, in the Southeast, and whatnot. They were just kind of doing this loop in their van all the time,
and were you
we looked at it as. I was going to say we almost would look at it as like a hurricane. Like it would start here, and then it would just the circle would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually they started touring the West Coast and internationally and stuff. And I just took that approach with X Ambassadors at first. It was, your music's great. Let's find every opportunity for you to get in front of people, open for bands, play at bars, whatever. Go stand at the merch booth afterwards, shake the hands, like do the thing. I mean, we had lofty ambitions. I think we thought this band should be on a major label, and we want their songs on the radio. How do we get there? But really, it just started as putting them on the road as much.
And this is like, we're talking what, 2010, 11, around that
2011, I think. Yeah.
2011. Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense, but that's really interesting. Cause we're still in the heart of YouTube at that era. Facebook, MySpace was kind of dead at that point. And Twitter, but you're like on the road, like play as many shows as you can. And where are they based?
They were based in New York, and they owned a van.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they also we also knew that their songs were just really fit for film and television, actually. And so I put a lot of energy early on into hiring some third-party people to help get them syncs. And that was one of the big first things for them, because we had a sync that led to a small publishing deal with Songs Publishing, which it was sold. But we were working with a great guy named Greg Johnson and a woman named Carrie Ann, who, when I first met Carrie Ann, she said, I really think this stuff's going to work great in film and television. Wow. And she was right. They were our publisher. And a number of things sort of happened from there, which was, they had a song in One Tree Hill, which led to, this is the really short version, but the song in One Tree Hill led to them ending up on someone's personal Spotify playlist. This is when Spotify was brand new and before editorial playlists had launched.
Yep.
So ends up on this playlist. A radio DJ in Virginia was friends with that person or listened to her playlist or whatever, played their song on the radio in Virginia. That song blows up in Virginia, right? Wow. And I'm getting emails from this radio station in Virginia, and I think I was on vacation visiting my now wife in London. And I remember getting these emails thinking like, oh, this is some college radio station. I'll get back to them later about this song. This can't be anything big. Then I get an email from a friend at Universal Republic who says, dude, do you see what's happening with with the Ambassadors in Virginia? And I'm like, I don't know, crap. Should I check this out? Okay. and then I do a little digging, and then I read some more of these emails from this station, and they're like, we're getting calls every day to play this song. We're playing it 80 times a week, but it's not registered anywhere. So it's not in media base and this and that. Like, and I went, oh shit, like we better jump on this. And, so it was just a whole weird chain of events, and that the kind of the heat from the song blowing up in Virginia. Again, the weirdest part about this is the band has zero connections to Virginia,
Right.
They were starting to tour around the Northeast and whatnot. And then we would, it was insane, actually. They would drive down to Norfolk, Virginia. We'd get in a van. They would headline to maybe 1,600 people, sold out in Virginia. Wow. And then we'd go back to New York, and they could barely sell out the Mercury Lounge. And we were like, this is like an alternate universe.
With a couple.
And all of that led to signing with, Kid in the Corner, Alex da Kid's label. And, a bunch of things happened from there. But even through major label deal and all that stuff, our focus was early on, it was just put on a great live show, make great music, and hit the road.
Mm.
And we did that, from probably 2011 till 2015. Just the band was just grinding it. They opened a tour for Jimmy Eat World. They opened a tour for Local H. They opened a tour for Panic at the Disco. It was just like,
So I want to know early on, with X Ambassadors or Jukebox the Ghost, speaking of opening tours, how did you work and help them get these opening slots on these tours? Because I know that's something that a lot of artists really, really want. Were you like, hey, they can draw 1,500 people in Norfolk, Virginia, like they can really help your draw? Or what was the pitch early on, and how did you make this happen?
I mean, yeah, it was constantly telling managers or agents, they're worth this many tickets in this place. So I see that your tour is going through Chicago and Cleveland and here. And I'll be honest, they've never played Cleveland, but they've sold 100 tickets in Chicago, and we'd love to open for you. So that's kind of how I approached it early on with both of those artists, and with Jukebox the Ghost specifically. They had such a buzz in the Northeast corridor that what we would do, when I use that hurricane analogy, is we had like the eye of our hurricane was Philadelphia, Boston, DC, New York. So we would often find these artists that did really well in like Atlanta or Chapel Hill or in the Southeast, and we'd say, hey, can Jukebox come open for you guys in the Southeast? You can come open for us in the Northeast. So there was a lot of that going on. Eventually we got, eventually for each band, we got booking agents that helped us pitch for things, but I was just relentless with that sort of stuff. I mean, the first really big tour that anyone got on was Jukebox the Ghost getting on tour with Ben Folds. And,
Nice.
and the reason that happened is I had sort of just, I mean, and this goes for everyone who's a student in the school right now. I mean, there's a lot of information out there that's really easily accessible, and you can piece together people's email addresses and figure out names and how you contact people. So I don't remember exactly how, but I think I got in touch with Ben Folds management, and I would just say, I see you're going on tour, or I think it started with, I see Ben Folds is playing at GW. Well, like Jukebox the Ghost, they go to GW, they get compared to Ben Folds 5 and blah, blah, blah. So can we get them on this show? And it was a no. And then it was, okay, what about this date? Can we get them on this date? No. And then I think maybe a few months later, someone from Ben Folds management had emailed me kind of laughing, and they said, Jukebox the Ghost gets compared to Ben Folds so frequently, we get all the Google alerts for it. So Ben has finally checked out their music and thinks they're great. So would they want to open these 6 shows? And we went, amazing.
That's amazing.
We did it. And with X Ambassadors, similarly, I mean, some of the bigger tours they got were really, I mean, they have a booking agent named David Galea at United Talent, who has been with them almost as long as I have. And he was also blown away when he first saw them at one of their early shows.
Yeah.
And, he just hustled for them. And to be honest, I think it was, getting them on a Panic at the Disco tour or whatever was just relationships and being able to show that they were worth some amount of tickets. And, we got lucky.
I love that. There's a lot of big takeaways here. And the persistence is key, like number one, but also being able to offer something in return. I think a lot of artists too early in their careers are like, I got to get on an opening tour, and that'll change my whole life and my whole career. It's like, yes, but maybe you're not ready for that because it's too early. And you were saying, well, they could sell 100 tickets in Chicago. Can you sell 100 tickets anywhere? And if the answer is no, well, then you got to figure out how you can, so you can offer something. And I love that you did. A lot of people early on do show trades, but you were doing tour trades. Come open for us in the Northeast, we'll open for you in the Southeast. And then the relentlessness. I got to tell my story. Speaking of Ben Folds, early on when I was, I was in Minneapolis at the time, and we had heard Ben Folds was doing a tour, Midwest tour, and mostly colleges. And like Ben Lee was his opener, and word got out that Ben Lee had to cancel one of his shows in Minnesota. It was at Gustavus College, and it was a big show. And word got out to everyone in like the Midwest area that Ben Folds is in need of an opener for that one show. And so everyone's submitting, submitting or whatever. And like, I had a college booking agent at the time, and I'm like, yo, can you submit me? Like, get me on the show. Cause out of college, we're not hearing anything. I'm like, fuck it. I'm taking it in my own hands. And so I started going down the Google rabbit hole. I'm like, who's Ben Folds' manager? How is this happening? So I looked it up and I found an article that like had interviewed Ben Folds' manager. And then I like figured out his email. I like did a lot more Googling, figured out this dude's email. I emailed him. I'm like, hey man, saw that Ben Folds in need of an opener. I'm a huge fan. It's Gus Davis. I've done this. I could, sold this tickets, blah, 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 blah. I did the whole pitch because at the time I was pulling really heavy in the Midwest. And I'm like, hey, can I open the show? And it was a college show, so they didn't really even need the ticket support. But either way, he gets back to me. He's like, oh, hey, I don't actually manage Ben anymore, but Kelly does. And I'll make the intro right now. So then he intros me to his new manager, and he's like, hey, this is Ari. Like he's inquiring about this show there. And then so she, because wants to keep that good relationship with this dude, was like, oh yeah, okay, thanks. And like within 2 days, I was confirmed for that show when every band in the Midwest was pitching to try to open that one.
Yeah, I think persistence is key, and I think persistence there's obviously a fine line to being persistent versus being annoying, but
yeah,
but also, I mean, I don't know, as long as you're keeping information concise and being respectful of people's time. I love persistence. I mean, I think most people that work in the music industry, unless they were just like handed some job by their dad or something, like most people know that they had to hustle to get where they are, so they'll give the time of day to someone else that's hustling for something. So I mean, I read pretty much every email that comes in. I don't always respond to everything, but I get emails all the time. Will JP Saxe listen to this song I wrote for him to cut, or will X Ambassadors take this song that I wrote or beat or something? And I'll usually respond and just say, sorry, they're not doing that, but hey, I checked out your song. It's cool. Like, keep in touch, because
nice.
Also I think that maybe a takeaway here for sort of aspiring managers or music executives or whatever is that, I don't know, I think that at least smart people in the music industry know that the next great artist or manager or booking agent or label founder is probably, 20 years old somewhere out there right now. So it's kind of like, you better give those people the time of day and at least acknowledge that maybe they're trying and yeah, I mean, I think it's important for younger people in the industry to have that sort of confidence to reach out and to just at least try.
I love that. And you don't want to burn any bridges. Don't, like, if somebody doesn't get back to you, this happens to me all the time when people email me. I mean, I get thousands of emails a day, and people email me, and then like I'll get another email, or I missed the first one. They email me and they're like, oh, so you're too cool to respond to me now, Ari? I'm going to remember that. And words getting out is like, you're just, you don't care about anybody anymore. Whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm A, missed your email. B, like, this on the list of priorities that I have to do every day is so far down on my priority list. Now, on the flip side, if somebody emails me and I don't get back, and then they email me again, politely follow up, and I don't get back, and then they politely follow up again. And like on the 6th time they follow up, all from the same thread, I'm just like, oh crap. All right, I got to get back to this person. Like, they've been so great about following up. And like, and so then I carve out time. I'm like, I'm going to get back to them. And I do. And I get back with a thoughtful response. But sometimes it takes 6 follow-ups. And I've found that, like, I've gotten a response on the other side of that from virtually anyone in the industry by taking that approach. Polite persistence, not annoying persistence, not burning that bridge, not telling
passive
them
aggressive,
off.
not anything, And I think,
No.
like I said, I mean, you sort of, I don't know. I try to be as good as I can based on how much time I have in the day to
Right.
younger people in the music industry, new artists, everything. Because also, look, I remember the people who gave me the time of day when I was
Yes.
just starting out. And now as I grow as a, manager and I run my own business, like I remember the people that were really cool to me early on. I also
Yes.
remember the people who were assholes to me. So, but like, and look, I'm sure there's also people that were like, oh God, Seth Kallen, when he was 20 years old, he used to annoy the shit out of me. He would just
Right.
text me and email me. And I'm sure I learned my balance of how to be persistent versus just be respectful and stuff. But, like I said, I think that, you got to sort of, as a new manager or artist or whatever, just know that there's nothing wrong with being confident and sort of not being shy with what you're trying to do.
Yes, I love that, and it's hard. I'm still, I still have that balance as artist businessman. I'm still an artist. I released a song yesterday and did the whole artist thing. I'm still doing the artist thing, and when we're performing, shows are back on, I'm still performing. And it's funny the shift that I have to go through, the emotional and mental shift, jumping from like businessman, managing and running a business and helping other artists and consulting other artists and teaching them and encouraging and inspiring and like guiding. And I have no problem with that. And like an artist comes to me and I'm like, oh, I see your whole path. Let's do this, 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 and this. No problem. Let's do this. I'll send out this person. And like I turn into manager role. Then when it flip it and it's myself, and I have to put my shit out. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I can't. Everyone hates me. I'm a worthless piece of shit. And it's like,
well, to be honest, frankly, that's kind of why I sort of, when I used to be an artist, I sort of knew, it's almost like I had this weird epiphany for an 18-year-old. Like the fact that it was so self-aware, but I knew, for me at least, I was like, God, I love talking with Jukebox The Ghost and figuring out their path. And that still applies to Ex Ambassadors, to JP Saxe, to Great Good Fine Okay, to Mink, to whoever. But then at the same time, back then I was still releasing my own music. And I remember thinking like, God, the rejection I feel for myself as an artist is just so painful versus not that it's not painful for an artist I work with, but I can at least compartmentalize it a bit and be like, again, early on for Jukebox The Ghost, sending their music, trying to get them booked into I remember it was like, we were always trying to get them playing at the Black Cat in DC. The Black Cat kept saying no. If that was me trying to book my own music there and my own band there, I probably just would have been heartbroken every time they said no. But with Jukebox, I was like, they said no. That's annoying, but they're going to say yes. I'm going to get them to say yes.
because it's not your art.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, is this, like, art to an artist is extremely personal, and any kind of rejection, even if it's somebody passing on booking you at a venue, which seems very innocuous to just somebody with all their wits and with a business mind, to an artist, it's like they hate my art, they hate my music, which is a direct extension of who I am. So they hate me, and they think my art's worthless, and so that means I'm worthless, and then just you start to spiral. And so,
yeah, I mean, look, one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give to any new artist listening to this right now or watching is simply just find a friend who has some kind of business and marketing and that type of thinking and brain, because just go let them try to fight these fights for you, so that you're not constantly adding so much emotional baggage to the decisions and the rejection. You can just get someone who believes in you to just go to battle. They don't have to have a bunch of big artists they manage. They don't have to have years of experience at a record label or anything. It's just like, do they kind of know about the music business? Do they get who you are? And do they really
read
believe
Ari's
in you?
book?
Have they read Ari's book? That's all you need.
Right. I love that. No, but you're so right. And that I'm so glad that you said that, because, and just telling your story about how you were just a young kid and loved this band. And you're like, I don't really know. And they're like, I don't really know what a manager does. And you're like, I don't really either, but hey, I love your shit. And like, let's do this together. And you partnered up and you did that. And I think anyone can find a friend or somebody that just loves them enough or believes in them or even like, you know, and it doesn't even need to be a full-on manager. It's just like little jobs here and there. It's just like, hey, you know, someone who says, I want to help. How can I help? It's like, well, I'm trying to book these shows. Actually, let me teach you how to do it. Here's the chapter on booking. And if you can just like
Right.
try to get these shows booked, that would be awesome. And then they do that. And it's just like, so at least if you know what needs to get done, you can delegate to people who want to help. And maybe it's not a Seth who's like, you're going to be your full manager from the get-go, but maybe it's a Tina who just is like, you know, your friend in college, or your coworker who's got some extra time and wants to pull away from the kids once in a while, or whatever, and she can help out. I want to jump to we have to talk about JP Saxe.
Yeah.
He's got like the biggest song in the world right now, with the world ending, and he wrote the song "If the World Was Ending, You'd Come Over, Right?"
But you shouldn't come over because it's against
Don't
the
come
rules.
over. Actually, right, exactly. Stay home. But so before we get into kind of how you guys connected, on a personal note, you know, this has been really cool to watch JP rise to fame and see this song take off. Like, I used to book them, used to like a year ago, at Hotel Cafe Mondays. Like, we would play the songwriter showcase together. I booked the showcase once in a while, and I remember the first time seeing him. I didn't know him. I was at a Monday. This was not one that I was hosting. I was just, I don't know if I was playing or just happened to be there. Didn't know who this dude was. This ginger gets up on stage, and and he's like, yeah, so I just went through a breakup, and, you know, I saw it's really fresh. I was just at a show at the Roxy, and I saw her there, and it was really tough, and it was weird playing this little game about like avoiding each other. This was 2 nights ago, and I wrote this song yesterday, and he plays the song, and it was Same Room, and everyone in the room, there were maybe 50 people in the room. Everyone in there was in tears by the end of the song, and I'm looking around. I was in tears, and everyone around, like, and he goes to the green room. I jump into the green room right afterwards, and I'm like, dude, I give him a big hug. We'd never met before. I give him a hug. I'm like, dude, that song, that is incredible. That hit me so hard. I feel for you. I'm so sorry. And like, thank you for sharing that with us and opening up. And like, that song is incredible. And I quoted a couple lines from it, and like, you know, he even told me like months later, right before he was going to release the song, he hit me up. He's like, Ari, you know, like, those words that you said to me, like, that little conversation, like, was so meaningful. It was one of the reasons that I actually decided to release the song. And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, you know, never underestimate the power of the words that you have to an artist after they play a new song for the first time. And I know when I'm on stage and after I play a song, the first person, I don't care who you are, whatever you have to say about that song, I take that as gospel, for better or worse. You know, but so it's like been really cool to watch JP go from, you know, playing to 50 people in LA at a songwriter showcase that they didn't buy tickets for him, just happened to be in that room. And I think he even on that same show, he's like, yeah, I just got back from playing from New York where 15 people came out to see me. And, you know, to now having one of the biggest songs in the world and cracking top 40 radio and doing that whole thing. So when did you get involved with JP? How did you meet him? And how did you kind of take him from that to what it is now?
So I met JP right at the end of last year, and to be honest, I can't really take a ton of credit for everything that's happened before that, because
End of 2019.
So I met him at the end of 2019, and he's just been you know, from what I've now learned, getting to know him and talking to friends, he's just one of those artists that's just been hustling his ass off for years,
Yes.
right? He's been doing all the things that I saw Jukebox The Ghost do early on, or Ex Ambassadors do early on. It was just write songs, make music, play as many shows as possible, you know, share your art and your music with the world. So when I met him end of 2019, he had just parted ways with his former manager, and If the World Was Ending had just come out, maybe like a month earlier. And it was definitely showing signs of this could be a very big streaming song.
And at the time, he was with a label when that song came out, right?
Yeah, so actually, to rewind a little bit, technically the first time I met him was earlier that year. I was at, back to my talking about how I go to everything as a traveling manager. I was at South by Southwest with a couple of our artists were playing, and myself and Sam from Ex Ambassadors were just like walking around Austin, and we went to go see, we went to a showcase hosted by my old roommate, a guy who runs a label called Neon Gold Records. We went to go see this artist named Yor Smith, who is amazing. We love her. And
she's
Caroline
from
Smith.
Minneapolis. Yes, love her.
Me and Sam were just like, let's go check her out. We like, my friend manages her. Let's go support and see what she's all about. Which, cool thing about that is you never know what's going to happen. We loved her. We ended up taking her on tour with Ex Ambassadors because we thought she was awesome. So I met JP at that show with Sam. I think he and his sort of former manager friend came up to us and started chatting with us and saying, hey, I'd love to pick your brain because, there's a few labels that we're talking to, some that it sounds like you've talked to in the past. And we were like, yeah, cool. And I think Sam was like, oh, dude, I'm a fan. Like I've heard your music before and whatever. Brief interaction there. Fast forward to end of 2019. He parts ways with his manager, releases If the World Was Ending. And then right around the same time, I got contacted by two friends that work at Paradigm who were his agents, who said JP was looking for a manager, and also David Massey, who runs Arista Records, reached out to me and said, I think you and JP would really hit it off. He's looking for a new manager. And again, back to something I said earlier, I tend to think about the people who gave me the time of day when I was younger. And frankly, over the last 7-8 years, David Massey is one of those people who we talked about him working with one or two of my artists early on, and it never actually worked out. But over the years, whenever I've had a new artist or whenever I was in New York or something and had a free time for coffee or lunch, he always made the time for me, and we've just gotten to know each other. And he's been one of those executives in the music industry who has always said to me, like, we got to work on something together. And he really followed through. And so he sent me, he reached out about JP, and I was like, oh my God, I love JP. Like I've heard the songs he's put out before. I've met him. He's a super nice guy. I'd love to meet him. So met him in December. Over the kind of holidays last year, I just made myself really available to him. When I was on vacation in Mexico, I was like giving him ideas on the phone, and I knew he was meeting with a lot of managers, and frankly, I think he was meeting with a lot of sort of heavy hitter managers that manage ginormous, pop stars. So at the time, I didn't really know that, and I'm glad I didn't. I just was like, I'm going to be myself and, go after this with passion and, be real with him and say, look, we're a boutique management company. We have a small team, but we really believe in what you're doing. So started working with him in January of this year. And it was all systems go. I knew right away when I met him that a big thing for me is it's not just about the music. It's really about the people. Because as a manager, at least for my style of management, I'm going to spend a hell of a lot of time with you. And I better like you if I'm going to be stuck on a tour bus or have to take a 3 a.m. flight somewhere for something. Like I better really enjoy getting along with you. And, and someone once said to me, a friend of mine, he was like, think about when you're, I don't know, if you do reach the top, like who do you want to be there with? Who do you want to be celebrating with? And JP, immediately, I just knew this guy is that type of person. So yeah, since January, February, it's only been about 6 months so far, but obviously it has been a wild experience because the song was streaming really well. Was starting to bubble up at radio. I came in and, put a strategy together with the team, sort of inserted myself immediately into the Arista team, his agent, his publisher, everyone. And we just kind of went to work right away. And then, of course, the song was already doing really well, to be honest, before quarantine and COVID kind of took its hold of the
I'm
entire
pretty
world.
sure I'm responsible for like 4,000 of those 400 million streams. That was me in my car on repeat last December. Just like it was literally on Spotify, just like repeat, just the one song and just go. And every
Well, it's
time I was
just
in the car, it was that song was just over and over. It's such a brilliant song, and I love like what I love about JP so much is that he says so much with so few words, and it just hits you. It's a fucking gut punch, and it's like it's so incredible because he doesn't have to go on long, streamy, lyrical
no, and
stories to get to the
it's like
point.
reading someone's journal too. It's like a
Yes.
notebook, and
Ugh.
yeah, I mean, it was funny actually. I remember too, right when I started managing him. So Savoir Door is another band I manage, and it's the singer is a guy named Paul Hammer, who's one of my best friends in the world. And he actually texted me, "Yo, have you heard this song 'If the World Was Ending' by JP Saxe? This is like the perfect pop song." And I said, "I forgot to tell you, I just started managing him last week." And he was like, "You're fucking kidding me."
Yeah.
But it was interesting. It's been interesting to be a part of because the I think the experience of people being quarantined at home and COVID and all this stuff gave the song another a sort of, I don't want to say a second life because it never really died down, but it just gave the song a whole new meaning. And I don't know. I think people just really connected with it during this time, and then we really tried to, in a tasteful way, sort of market it and really lean into this feeling that we're all having, being stuck at home,
Mm-hmm.
and the lyric is just. I mean, JP has, when this was first starting to really kick off in say February, March, and people were starting to quarantine and stuff. He called me one day and he goes, "Seth, I just want you to know I didn't ask for this. Like I didn't want to have the coronavirus anthem." But he's like, but at the same time, I'm really glad it's really resonating with people in a
Yeah.
really special way. Yeah, and like I said at the beginning of our conversation about the touring world and what I wrote in this Medium piece I just put out, the interesting thing for me has been, while it's amazing and we're just like high-fiving digitally all the time about we
Right.
got this new radio ad, or we crossed this peak at streaming, and you know it's been sort of hard for me to compute like what it means to have a big song and a big moment without seeing him sing it in front of people. I mean, next week, or maybe it was this week, he was supposed to start his first US tour. It was 100% sold out, small venues. It was Bowery
Wow.
Ballroom in New York. It was the Troubadour in LA. It was all ready to go. He was supposed to be,
Mm.
he was supposed to be playing in Hyde Park this summer. He was going to be opening for a massive, massive artist that I probably can't even say, but there was all these things that were supposed to happen. And I was on a personal level, and he too was just so looking forward to, like, for me, it all kind of makes sense when I go, here we are at the Troubadour, lights go down, there's 500 people crying with their lighters up, singing "If the World Was Ending." So now we're like, well, shit, what do we, like, how do we digest this right now? So,
Mm-hmm.
I'll report back when the first show happens, but it's been a really gratifying experience. And his team at Arista is just honestly incredible. Like, they're really kicking ass as a new major label.
Mm.
David Massey's an amazing leader. The team there is just fantastic. They're bright. They're having fun. They have ideas all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
JP is honestly just one of the hardest working people I know. I mean, he does, you know, th- there's obviously a bit of luck and timing with anything, but, never underestimate just what grinding and putting in the work will do for you. He never says no to an interview, to a thing we ask him to do for us, for an important fan, or for, "Hey JP, I need you to send this video thanking this specific music director at a radio station in Minneapolis because they really believed in you from the start. Can you send them
Cool.
this, or can we do this?" And he always has amazing ideas that we run with, and it's
Awesome.
been a lot of fun.
He's not too cool for anyone, and not that's great. He's stayed humble, and that's something I've seen with a lot of artists who, had to put in the time and the energy and the grind, and they grinded it out. And, you remember where you came from, and you remember that everyone can like be have an important effect on your career. And it's like, you're not too big for anything or anyone, and it's all there.
You know, he right when we released the Hold It Together EP,
Yeah.
this whenever that happened a couple months ago, we did a little secret release party for him at a place actually in Atwater Village. This is where I live. That was very convenient, called Club TG. And he what he did for the release party, which I thought was really special, and a few friends pointed out to me how unique and special it was. He was like, man, I don't want to be sort of like, I don't want just to be like up there performing for 45 minutes for everybody. Be like, look at me, look at the CP. He's like, I just want to have a gathering with some of my closest friends. A lot of them are songwriters. I want to showcase them, right? I want to, and he got up at the beginning of the night. He played one song. We were all at like an open bar kind of thing. We were all hanging out, and he just would introduce a friend. They would get up and they would perform their song in front of like these industry people and friends and whatever. And then another one would play, and then another one would play. And then he ended playing one or two songs. And I think it was just really, it just gave me a little peek inside his mind, which is he really values the people that have helped him get to where he is now. And he knows he has a long way to go still. And we all do. But, I think it's just important for everybody to acknowledge that you gotta be good people. You gotta pay it forward to the people that have helped you out and help them out. He's like, even when it came to planning his tour for this year that hasn't happened, I mean, a lot of the shows were sold out, so it didn't really matter who opened for him. But his first thought was just, okay, I want this friend to open for me here, and I want this friend to open for me here, and this would be so much fun because this is their hometown. They can play with me here, and I want to help them, because awesome. I don't know, they were the first person to like put me in a studio session in LA, or they did this or that. So,
great.
It's been a lot of fun.
Love that. Well, Seth, thank you so much. We're going to take a couple questions now from people who are here from Ari's Take Academy students. We have a question now from Sophia Kors.
Actually, I have 3 questions. I don't know if I can ask them all.
Ask your first one. Let's see. I'll cut you off if we.
Okay. So, I've been working with someone I met at school, and they're a 4th-year commerce student. But they're also very, he started his own real estate business. He's very entrepreneurial. He's done a lot of e-commerce and stuff, and he's very, very on board and has been giving me a lot of good ideas. Like, he gave me a fundraising idea. He's done a lot of things to secure my brand, like help me secure my brand, like things like that. And he's really eager to learn and stuff. And so I don't know, like you were saying, it's really good to have a friend with that mindset to kind of help propel you to do all those things and like to bounce your ideas, I guess, off other people. So I don't know, I guess what's the best way to move forward with that, and how can I help him, support him, and how can we work together better as a team?
This applies to anyone being a manager and really doing anything in life, I guess. But, you should remind him to always stay humble and always be asking questions. I think one of the most important things a manager can do is just ask lots of questions of people and read and read blogs and all that kind of thing, because, the music industry is changing every 5 minutes, it seems. And I, to this day, still, I've had a decent amount of success, and there's a lot of things I still really want to do for myself and for my artists. But, it's just all about kind of knowing what you don't know is really important, and not bullshitting too much. Obviously, there's always a little bit of bullshit. Like, I'll pretend I know things that I don't really, but it's just really knowing what you don't know. And, for me, there's constantly things that I'll call a lawyer or call another manager friend or call a booking agent, and I'll say, hey, I don't really get what this is. I don't know what this means. Can you teach me about it? Can you tell me what this thing means? Or I heard someone talk about, like D2C campaigns for ticketing, and sometimes I might be like, I don't know what D2C stands for. Like, can someone explain that to me? Like, phone a friend, So I think that the best advice I could give to both of you would just be to ask a lot of questions, honestly. And, I think that that's going to help you two build a deeper level of trust too, because, he doesn't know everything, right? So that if you're like, hey, I want to do this, and he goes, yeah, I know exactly what that means. Deep down that that's bullshit. So you'd rather have someone working with you that goes, you know what, I'm not sure, but that's a good question. Let me go find out. I still, to this day, whether it's JP or X Ambassadors, who are two really established artists, they call me with things all the time that sometimes Sam from X Ambassadors will be like, yo, I want to connect with this person at this company. And like, what would it mean if we did this thing with them? Right. I mean, that's vague, but I'll say, that's a really good idea. I have a friend I could ask about that. Give me till like, I don't know, Thursday. I'll call you back, but like, let me just ask a few friends about what they did in this scenario, or I'll ask a friend to connect me to this person or whatever. So, and I think that's advice for him, is that's built a really strong level of trust. And for me and my artists, because they always know I'm going to be honest with them. They know that I'm not going to pretend to know something I don't, which could then possibly harm them somehow. I'll always say, I don't know. Give me a minute.
Cool. Thank you. That's great, Seth. Right on. Hannah, how's it going, Hannah?
I'm also manager of alternative rock band, so it was very useful to hear all these advices you said for artists and for manager. And we had some success with scene placements. They played some shows at 400 venues. They sold out. But we are based in Moscow, and I feel a little bit that we are a little bit stuck there, as we don't have a lot of things in terms of music, in terms of managing the artists, which go around us. So I'm with all my mind, in the LA, in the US. I'm trying to meet people online to make as much as possible, run digital ads, find sync agents. But if you would be on my place, what would you focus on? Because do you think we need to try to find maybe an independent label, a partner who will love our music as much as we love it?
I would say that, and this logic applied to Jukebox The Ghost early on, it applied to X Ambassadors early on, and it applies to any band really. I would say focus extremely locally right now. Like, make your band the biggest band in Moscow, right? Do whatever you can to just make them, whether it's shows when they can happen again, like make them popular locally within Russia. Try to contact radio stations, build a relationship with, the different DSPs, like whether it's Spotify or Deezer, or I know there's a few others in Russia that I'm blanking on the names for. And I think that, music is so global right now that no one cares where an artist is from when they're clicking on it on Spotify. So, there's so much in your control as an artist and a manager right now, where, if you guys find a way to build some sort of relationship with someone at Spotify, for example, in Russia, who handles rock music, if they're an alternative rock band, and they champion you locally, the implications of that around the world can be truly amazing, because, you can see a song suddenly travel. Like, I don't know, I'm really good friends with a guy named Bjorn who manages Milky Chance, right? They're from Germany. And their song started out bubbling in Germany, and it was, moving around the charts on German radio and German Spotify and German Apple Music. And then it kind of spread to the rest of Western Europe, then spread to Eastern Europe. Then a label in the US signed them and released the song here and took it to radio here. And so I think that there's really something to be said to be with the goal of being like we want to become the biggest band in Moscow, right? Or we want to become the biggest band in Russia, because then all of those things that even Ari and I were talking about with trading shows and trading tours, they can start to, that can start to spread from there. If your band that you manage is really popular in Moscow, for example, you might become friends with another band that does well in St. Petersburg, and another one that does well in Kiev, and another one that does well in Belarus or something. And then you can all start doing shows together and build a local regional thing amongst all of these countries. And then the same thing applies to, like I said, music is so global. The internet for better or for worse, it can be amazing for artists, where you can create this like world online. And especially if I don't know if the artist is able to, if they sing in English or not, but
Yes.
that can also help the music spread worldwide.
Mostly English speaking fans.
Yeah. So I would say put a lot of your energy into not worrying about, can I find a record label in other countries or something, but really with developing a relationship with champions within Russia at, like I said, DSPs, radio stations, press, whatever. And then kind of build that as far as you can around there.
Cool. Thank you so much. That was great. Thanks, Hannah. Also, let's see, Nick Diamondidis.
I know you mentioned earlier on about ex-ambassadors like going for syncs, getting their songs in like shows or films, stuff like that. How do you guys make decisions like when you're working with third parties, like where to move forward? Because a lot of times, I mean, I'm just doing Google searches, reading reviews, and it's kind of hard to decipher who to work with.
For sync specifically, or just with anything?
Sync specifically, I have a song that I've actually I never had given it much thought, but been told recently by a bunch of people like, oh, this would be great for a TV show or something. But so I haven't there, but I guess just syncs, and then in general, like.
I mean, look, I've been doing this long enough that I have a large network of friends. So I ask people, anytime we're about to work with a company, I ask 3 to 5 friends, what do you think of this company? Have you worked with them before? What's the good? What's the bad? I think the truth is that I go off of passion too. And it's an unquantifiable thing, but if you have music and you're looking for someone to pitch it to film and television, I think that, you send the music out to as many different companies as you can find. And, I will say, don't let anyone scam you where they're like, yeah, pay us $1,000 a month to be able to pitch your songs to film and television. Like, then that's a red alert. Walk away from that. Anyone who's going to represent your music for film and television should just be taking a percentage of if they make anything happen. And, just I'd say send the music out to as many different sync agencies as you can find. There's so many out there who are looking for music all the time. I think that give them some context to what it is. Like, hey, listen to this song. Here's the lyrics. It's about, I don't know, heartbreak, and it fits somewhere in the middle of this artist and this artist, and could work great in the following 5 TV shows, or I'm inspired by these artists that are in films a lot, or that kind of thing. And just really, you have to. I think a lot of this industry is just built on judgment calls that you really don't know half the time, like whether it's going to be the right decision or not. So you just have to try things out and not sign away the rights for a long-term commitment if you're just testing the waters with like someone. But yeah, you just have to go on gut.
This is a long way of Seth saying you should enroll in the Ari's Take Academy Sync Strategies course.
I wasn't sure. I was under the impression that was mainly for hip hop. with them now?
It started as hip hop and sync, but because so many people from other genres jumped into that, we've now expanded it outside of every genre. And our instructor, Vo Williams, he's had over 1,000 sync placements. He's a hip hop artist. That's why we started as a hip hop thing, but we're now expanding it. So enrollment's currently closed, but we're going to be opening it up again in a few months to be full on sync strategies to everybody. And yeah, exactly what Seth was saying. So right on. Well, I think we have time for one more question. We kept Seth here a long time, and I really appreciate his expertise and his generosity with all of his knowledge and information. Our last question is going to be from Mark Cruza. Mark, how's it going?
Definitely, everybody recommend the sync course if you haven't taken a look at that. So I'm coming from a little different place than maybe a lot of you. I've got a full-time job in IT, and I'm kind of testing the waters in the music industry. I've been a musician my whole life. I've just never tried to, make any bank off of it. A lot of good suggestions I've heard already. Anything that you could give specifically for best bang for your buck as far as time goes? And being this the age of COVID, we all have limited time to do live music anyway.
Go ahead.
So, well, I guess it's a bit of a broad question, best bang for your buck during time of COVID, but I will say that, I'm trying to think of things that are working particularly well at this moment, right? So there's obviously a lot of broad music industry things we talked about, and frankly, a lot of the stuff we talked about is about touring and shows, and none of that's happening right now. So I will say, though, that although I think overall streaming is down a little bit, there's certain kind of sides of this world of streaming that have done remarkably well. Ambient music, relaxing music, chill out playlists. I find myself listening to a lot of like lo-fi hip hop beats at home while I'm working. It's relaxing. Or I listen to Spotify's Quiet Hours playlist, or our artist Savorador just released a really beautiful ambient instrumental record called Image Tapes Volume 1 that I think you guys should all check out. It's really cool. So I think that there's an interesting niche right now for artists creating instrumental music that's pleasing to listen to and that's relaxing and calming. And I think that there's, the interesting thing about the world of streaming and Spotify and Apple Music and all these places is you can just take a taste of anything, right? If you're one day you're like, man, I've never explored the George Harrison's solo catalog, or, I want to just listen to beats that Jay Dilla made, I'm like, you can just do anything and it's all there. So I think that you can kind of just test the waters with lots of different types of music. And especially now, I would say there's a bit of a desire, and this might not last forever, but for, I think big pop songs right now, people are not the taste for that and discovering your favorite new dance pop song, unless you're like the new Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande song, which is awesome, unless it's gigantic artists, unless it's that, I think people are maybe not interested so much in that right now as far as their new music discovery. They're kind of going towards to listen to things that are nostalgic to them and catalog music. But I think there is a bit of discovery happening right now in that instrumental, neoclassical ambient space, which is I'm finding really interesting, because I myself am discovering like some of the coolest music right now, because I'm just like, I can't, I'm stressed out. I don't want to listen to someone sing or talk or rap. Like, I just want to listen to interesting guitar loops over hip hop beats. It's like, soothing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'd say take a shot at that kind of stuff.
Right on. Sweet. Well, thank you, Seth. I have one final question that I ask every guest that comes on the show. What does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
Well, I guess I've two different answers. There's make it as an artist and make it as a manager. It remains true to me that I always said if I can help an artist have a sustainable, self-sustaining life and career off of music, then I feel like we've made it. I think one of my proudest things I've done is that Jukebox The Ghost has never really had day jobs in the 15 years I've worked with them. Jesse, the drummer, works at a coffee shop because he likes coffee and just likes getting some extra cash, and he likes talking to people when they're not on the road. So he does that for fun. But, so I think that to me, success is an artist being able to make a career off of their music. And as far as being a manager goes, I don't know. I guess I can't even answer that because I probably don't feel like I've made it, and I will never feel like I've made it, and we've had top 10 songs we've been a part of, and we've had Grammys we've been a part of. But I think that I'm wired, and I'm guessing a lot of managers are wired this way, to think about, well, what's next, and frankly, even sometimes I have trouble. I take good care of myself and like to celebrate my victories and things, and always take time to try to, whenever anything good happens, just take a minute to be grateful and say, like, wow, this is, if I told 18-year-old me that I was involved with a Grammy winning album this year, we were involved with Lizzo's album, Cause I Love You. Like, if I told myself that, or if I told myself that I had an artist headlining Red Rocks, or I had an artist collaborating with Sam Smith, like, I would think, well, then I'm going to think I've made it. But the truth is that when those things happen for me, I'm always like, that's so cool. Like, this is great, but okay, how do we keep moving? What are we doing next? What's in the future? So we can do a follow-up podcast when I eventually decide that I've made it. But for now, I don't have an answer yet.
I love that. That's a great answer. Well, Seth Kallen, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your time and your generosity with your knowledge. And stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, stay inside.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. And, like I said, everybody should be hustling and communicating with people. So feel free to follow me or This Fiction on Instagram or something, and reach out. Like, I'll, if I have time, I'll say hey, for those that are in the class right now or listening in later. But thank you guys so much for listening.